does number 2 work for?
Welcome back. I'm that Halloween movie collector, Pat, and I'm back with another top 5. For this one, I thought it'd be fun to do my top 5 movies, part 2. Specifically, sequels to a film where the sequel is part 2. Because there's plenty of sequels to movies that are necessarily called part 2. You know, you can talk, you have The Shining, you have Doctor Sleep, you have Alien, you have Aliens. I mean, there's so many that are sequels, but I thought, why not just list my top 5 that are specifically part 2s? So, here we go. My number 5 from 1997, Scream 2. While I know Scream has its lovers and haters, this whole franchise is very divisive. I don't understand why, because I just think it's fun. I do like the premise that every movie does have a different killer. It's fun to have a little bit of a whodunit. It's been whodunit way too much, I think, as far as I'm concerned. But looking forward to part 6 this year. I did appreciate Scream 5 last year. But I do enjoy part 2 because it wasn't too far of a stretch. I mean, you had Laurie Metcalf posing as a reporter, and she's the mother of Billy Loomis, and she wants to enact revenge because Sidney Prescott killed him. So I do like the whole premise. It was cool, the whole thing where they're in the theater in the beginning. They're all watching the Stab movie, which is supposed to be based on the Woodsboro murders, which is kind of cool in of itself. And the whole murder scene in the movie theater is reminiscent of the early kills that you saw, like in the first one, where they killed off Drew Barrymore in the first 10 minutes. You were like, wow, holy shit, what the hell was that? So I do enjoy Scream 2. I think it's fun. She's in college. There's a whole new group of people. She's got a new boyfriend, and you don't know if the boyfriend's involved or not, and she's not sure either. So I enjoy Scream 2. I think it's a lot of fun. So that is my number 5 favorite, part 2. My part 4 is relatively new from last year, 2022, Terrifier 2. This was my favorite movie of the year last year. Sorry, I'm a big Halloween fan. Halloween Ends was not my favorite movie last year. I love Terrifier 2. I mean, you can love or hate this so-called franchise because there's only really 2 movies, and Damien Leone is working on a part 3. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. He's got a lot to live up to because there's just nothing to it. It's just this random clown killer from the first movie that just appeared there, and we don't understand how the hell he survived because he shot himself in the head at the end of the movie. Manages to come back to life for part 2, and it's just complete mayhem. It was just a lot. Lauren Lavera as the final girl in it was fantastic. I thought I'm looking forward to seeing what she does in part 3. It's just a fun movie. If you like gore and like torture, Terrifier 2 is the movie to watch, because holy shit did he really up the gore in part 2 from part 1. Because part 1, my daughter watched it with her friends, part 1, and they had to shut it off during the whole hacksaw scene because she's like, I just couldn't watch it anymore. And I said, well, then don't go watch part 2, because if you thought that was bad, Terrifier 2 is a lot worse. It's just a lot of fun movie. Art the Clown is great. It's just some of the quirky things he does. It makes you giggle while you're watching these people be, tortured and killed. It's a fun movie. And I was a little put off when I first heard it was going to be 2.5 hours. I'm like, 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think is the running time. But it goes fast because it's entertaining. And if you have a long movie, as long as it keeps you entertained, it doesn't matter how long it is because you're enjoying it. But I enjoyed Terrifier 2. I thought it was a lot of fun. And it's my number 4, part 2. Number 3 from 1981, Friday the 13th, part 2. One of my favorite horror films ever. I love part 2. Not a bit. Part 1, of course, everybody's a fan of it if you like the Friday the 13th franchise, but admittedly, it's not the best in the franchise. Part 2 was great because they introduced Jason as the killer, and I do like Sackhead Jason. I thought it was very cool. It was very creepy with the white pillowcase over his head with the one eye. And I love me some Amy Steele. I always loved her in that movie, and I just one of my favorite final girls, Amy Steele. Would have liked to have seen her in other things besides April Fool's Day. There should have been more movies with her in it. And it's just a lot of fun. They introduce Jason. There's some great kills in it. It's not overly gory, which is nice. It still keeps it in line with a nice, good horror movie, not necessarily a gore fest. And you like the characters in it too because you appreciated the characters. You felt for the guy in the wheelchair, especially when he got that machete. Oh, Madonna me, that's got to be the worst. Where he goes all the way down the freaking the stairs after getting hit. Just some great kills, some real cute girls in it. So I'm not gonna lie there. I remember when I first saw it in 1981. You figure 1981, I was what 10? I was 9 years old. Some cute girls in there. Fun movie, start to finish. Just a great film. And my number 3, part 2. My number 2, part 2. I'm sure those thought this would have been number 1, and believe me, it was tough to. It actually really wasn't tough. I'd be lying if I said it was tough, because what I chose for my number 1 is clearly the best part 2. Actually, one of the best sequels, and I will get to that. But my number 2, part 2 of all time, is from 1981, Halloween 2. Now, this, of course, it was my first Halloween movie I saw in the theater. Scared the shit out of me when I was 9 years old, going to see it for opening weekend. It's great because I think I mentioned on one of the other videos, if you put it back to back with Halloween, you make it one long movie, it flows. Granted, if you go back and watch my video, and I'll put a link up to it here, where I compared Dick Warlock and Nick Castle, who did it better. And, I did give the edge to Nick Castle. But I love what Dick Warlock did in it. I mean, he's a little bit too robotic in it. And, there was arguments 2 and 4. You could say, well, he was shot 6 times. He got stabbed in the eye. Maybe he would move a little bit slower. But, yeah, I get that. I said you could factor that in and just give that a little bit of a leeway. But it was still great. I mean, he was menacing. He was creepy. He was scary in this movie. And it was just great kills, great characters that you identify with. It has, one of the best performances by, Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis, fresh off of Halloween, the original Halloween. Just a great movie. It's in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. And it narrowly beat out what I'm choosing for number 1, simply because what I'm choosing for number 1, you'll understand why. But my number 2, part 2 favorite, Halloween 2 from 1981. So my number 1, part 2, didn't take much thought on this one, because it's probably one of the best sequels, horror sequels, or just sequels in general to an original film ever. It's from 1983, and that is Psycho 2. Now, the thought of even continuing the story of Norman Bates from the original 1960 classic was taboo at the time. I remember everybody saying, oh, no, you're going to ruin it. It's not going to be good. No, not at all. And blaspheme out of my mouth to say I love Psycho 2 better than the original Psycho. While the original Psycho is fantastic, it was my number 1 movie of the 60s, and it's just iconic. I love Psycho 2. I mean, it's a great premise that they brought him out of the mental asylum, and he's trying to stay on the straight and narrow, trying to get a job. He's trying to take back his hotel and just try to remain sane. And you have Vera Miles, who came back from the original movie, playing Lila Crane, coming back, and she's so pissed off that he was released. Actually, she was even at the trial, the hearing for his release, complaining about it. And she's just doing everything in her power to make him go off the rails and lose his mind again. And if you watch it, she kind of succeeds, towards the end, based on what happens at the end of the movie. But it's just a great, great sequel to a classic. You just could not. Anthony Perkins as that character. I mean, he defined that character. Obviously, it was his defining character of his career. But coming back for that part 2, unbelievable. It's still one of my favorite movies. I still watch it a lot because it's just great. You have Meg Tilly. Oh, I used to have a big crush on too. Who doesn't love the Tilly sisters? I mean, you got Meg Tilly, Jennifer Tilly. If you're a big Chucky fan, just a great, great film. Great story. There's some real good kills, and it's not too gory, which is good, because they try to keep in vein of the original Psycho, which was not a gore fest by no means. But, of course, it was the early 80s, the age of the 80s slashers, so they had to have a little bit of blood and gore, but it wasn't over the top. It still made it a good horror film, a good thriller horror film. Fantastic. Psycho 2, easily my number 1, part 2 horror film. And there you have it. Those are my top 5 part 2 films, horror films. There are plenty of part 2s of other stuff, but And maybe I'll visit some of those down the road, but I'm a horror guy, as you guys can see. So I figured, instead of just doing my sequels, I'm probably going to do my top 5 sequels, because that's going to be a different list, because there, as I mentioned before, there are sequels that are not necessarily called Part 2. But I just wanted to specifically focus on sequels that had the 2 at the end of it. I thought it'd be fun. So thanks for hanging out and watching with me. If you'd like to see my Halloween collection or updates on this channel, check me out on Instagram at That Halloween Movie Collector, where my whole collection is, and ask any questions or things you'd like to see. I do collectible spotlights on a lot of the stuff that's on there. Just stop by, say hi. I'm also on the Twitter world at That Halloween Movie Collector on Twitter. Basically just updates on this channel and some other fun stuff. So if you're on the Twitter world, you want to check it out, give it a look. And for those Halloween collectors that are watching this, be sure to stop in on Facebook land at Halloween and Michael Myers Collectors Group, where everybody is selling masks, rehauls, selling items, updates on the Halloween franchise. Anything related to Halloween is in that group, and it's a good group of people, so go check it out. It's a lot of fun. And starting on February 19th, as of this recording, we'll be having our new podcast. That Horror Movie Podcast will be starting Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with my good buddies Joe and Brett. So it's going to be, look forward to that. Stop by, check it out, say hello, say you watched That Halloween Movie Collector, and it should be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of Halloween-based content, a lot of horror content, and just a lot of fun with 3 guys probably having a couple of drinks and just breaking each other's chops, and hope you'll join in. And there you have it. Thanks for stopping by. Let me know your top 5 part 2s. Maybe I missed something. Be sure to hit that like button, which is right around there. Helps people find this channel. Be sure to check out the other content on the channel. And while you're doing that, give a like, subscribe. And if you like this kind of content, you like the other stuff that's on here, the collectible spotlights, some interviews, some co-collector spotlights, movie reviews, all that happy, fun horse shit. It's all here. So if you like it, like and subscribe. Would be much appreciated. So be sure to come back, tell your friends about That Halloween Movie Collector, talk about it in your sleep, talk to your enemies, tell your pets, yell about it out the window to your neighbor, and I will talk to you soon.